One day, when Peter arrives at school, he learns that their new teacher, Miss Devine, has joined as a substitute for Mr. Butler. After introducing herself to all the students in the class, Devine notices Peter sitting alone in the classroom at the end of the school day. That was the first time she had a personal interaction with him. Among all the students, this introverted boy catches Devine's attention. During dinner that evening, Peter expresses his desire to dress up and go trick-or-treating at the upcoming Halloween party because all his school friends are participating. However, Peter's parents do not permit him. They explain that a few years ago, before Peter was born, a girl went missing while trick-or-treating with her friends on Halloween night. She was never found again. Because of this incident, the neighborhood has always been extra cautious. That night, Peter goes to bed with a flashlight pointed at the wall. After some time, the silence is broken by a young girl's voice calling out from the other side of the wall. Startled, Peter calls his father, who checks but finds nothing unusual. After listening at the wall for a moment, Peter's father, Mark, says, "I'll take care of this in the morning." The next day, Mark spreads rat poison throughout the house, including Peter's room, as it is common for old wooden houses to have mice hiding in the walls. When taking the packet of poison from the storeroom, Peter sniffs it and says, "This smells like cinnamon." He feels sad knowing that the poison will kill the mice, but Mark explains sometimes we have to make difficult decisions to protect our family. That day at school, during drawing class, Devine notices that Peter has drawn something unusual compared to the other students. Concerned, she finds Peter's home address and visits his house. When she knocks on the door, Carol answers. Devine shows Carol the drawing and asks, "Is your son okay?" Because drawings like this from children can be a matter of concern. "May I personally check on Peter?" Carol responds seriously. "I was a teacher myself once. More importantly, I am Peter's mother. I believe I can take care of my son better than you can. As for this drawing, Peter does have an overactive imagination. However, since you're mentioning it, I'll ask him about it." Saying this, Carol shuts the door. Later, Carol shows the drawing to Peter and asks, "What happened that made you tell a stranger instead of me?" After a moment of silence, Peter replies, "It's not me who needs help, but the one on the other side of the wall." Carol does not respond. That night, Peter is awakened by a girl's voice. In a calm tone, she says, "Don't be afraid. I just want to talk to you." Peter tries to convince himself that this is just a dream, but it feels too real. The voice speaks again. "I just want to be your friend. You're a good person. But if you don't want me here, I'll leave." Feeling bad, Peter replies, "It's okay. You don't have to go. Tell me what you need." The next scene shifts to the classroom the following day. The students are preparing pumpkins for Halloween. When Devine compliments Peter's pumpkin, Brian, the naughtiest boy in class, gets jealous. After school, he deliberately knocks over Peter's pumpkin, breaking it. Peter says nothing to anyone and goes home, crying alone at night. Hearing his sobs, the voice from the wall asks, "Peter, what happened? Why are you crying? Did someone hurt you?" Peter replies, "Yes, a boy named Brian hit me. He does this to me every day." The voice responds, "I had a feeling something like this would happen to you, but I believe in you. I know you're strong. One day, you'll stand up for yourself. You just have to try." The next day, Brian brings another pumpkin for Peter, and it seems like everything is back to normal. However, after school, Peter pushes Brian down the stairs, breaking his leg. When the school calls Peter's guardians about the incident, Peter is shocked. Back home, Mark scolds Peter harshly. They cannot understand how their usually quiet son became so violent. Carol then mentions the drawing, making Mark furious. He locks Peter inside a secret basement behind the fridge. Until then, Peter had no idea their house had such a large basement. Meanwhile, the principal questions Devine about her visit to Peter's house. Devine admits that Peter's mother seemed suspicious, as if she was hiding something. The headmaster explains, "That's understandable. A child went missing from their neighborhood years ago. That's why most parents there are overprotective." However, this explanation does not ease Devine's suspicions. She starts researching a missing 11-year-old girl named Rebecca from Enfield Town. Growing increasingly worried about Peter, Devine, while grading test papers, writes her phone number on Peter's sheet, hoping he will call if he is in trouble. Several hours pass in the basement. Peter notices a heavily chained door in the distance. Behind it, a lower basement is covered with an iron grate. Inside, there is an old doll. The situation seems suspicious. Just then, the doorbell rings. Carol opens the door to find Devine standing there. When Devine hands Carol Peter's math test paper, Carol is about to shut the door, but Mark welcomes Devine inside. As she enters, Devine notices Mark holding a small hammer. Later, when Mark serves her coffee, Divine sees blood dripping from his hand, which heightens her suspicions. Divine asks, "What's going on? Why hasn't Peter been coming to school?" Mark replies, "We withdrew him from school. From now on, my wife will oversee his education. There won't be any issues since she was a teacher herself." Shocked, Divine says, "What are you saying? If Peter goes to school, he will learn new things. It will help his mental development. Meeting new friends will be good for him. Please, let me talk to him just once." Mark responds, "That's not possible. We have locked him in his room as punishment for what he did at school." Divine insists, "I just want to see how Peter is doing, then I'll leave." Hearing this, Carol becomes angry. "Why are you so interested in Peter? He is our son. We know what's best for him better than you do." As the argument escalates, Mark calms Carol down. Meanwhile, Peter begins banging on the basement door. Unfortunately, at that moment, the washing machine turns on and Divine cannot hear the noise. Once, Divine had a feeling that she could hear a faint noise. However, Mark somehow managed to convince her and drove her out of the room. In the evening, Carol baked cookies for Peter with her own hands and took him out of the basement. Peter was informed that his school had been shut down and that his mother would now teach him at home. That night, after everyone had fallen asleep, Peter pressed his ear against the wall on his own. A response came from the other side. "Peter, I was just thinking about you. You need to be more careful from now on. The way those two behave in front of you is not who they really are." Peter replied, "I want to see you." But the girl refused to come out. She had been trapped there for many years, and if Peter saw her, he might scream in fear. That would expose both of them. Despite hearing this, Peter stubbornly insisted on seeing her. Finally, the girl said, "All right, look just below the wallpaper on this wall. There's a hole. You'll be able to see me through it." Following her instructions, Peter found the hole and peered inside. In the darkness, he saw a terrifying eye staring back at him. Startled, he recoiled instantly and trembling asked, "Who are you?" The reply came, "I am your elder sister." The girl revealed, "I have been waiting all these years for you to grow up so that you could move the big clock in your room. Behind it, there is a secret door. That door is my only way out of this never-ending darkness." That night, Peter didn't say anything and just lay down silently. But in his sleep, he had a nightmare about his parents trying to kill him. The next day, Peter spoke to his trapped sister again. He asked, "If you were locked away, how did you even get into my room?" His sister explained, "It took me immense effort and many attempts to finally reach here. Our parents never liked me. They abandoned me here to die. And not just that, they even committed murder. If you don't believe me, go check the backyard." Following her words, Peter secretly went to the backyard the next morning and started digging the ground. Soon, he uncovered a human skull. Just then, Carol arrived and Peter somehow covered up the situation. When he returned to his room, his sister revealed more. "I was locked up on Halloween night. That night, someone came for trick-or-treating and heard my cries for help. But before they could do anything, our parents killed them and buried them in the backyard." Hearing this, Peter started crying. He promised his sister, "No matter what, I will get you out of this wall, and we will escape together." However, he realized he couldn't do it alone, so he secretly dialed Miss Divine's number from his test paper. But Carol saw this and scolded him. While scolding, her eyes fell on the hole in the wall, and a slight fear crept onto her face. She asked, "Has someone been talking to you?" That night, Peter's sister warned him, "Our parents know everything now. They could kill both of us at any moment." Amidst all these fears, Halloween night finally arrived. Peter was sitting at the dinner table with his parents. Tonight's meal seemed tastier than usual, but there was a strange cinnamon-like smell coming from the food. At that moment, Mark grew suspicious. He noticed that while his parents had finished their entire meal, Peter hadn't taken a single bite. Then, from outside, they heard the sound of the wind blowing against the open warehouse door, the same place where the rat poison was kept. Furious, Mark demanded, "Peter, what have you done?" Peter responded, "Why did you kill my sister?" Now, Mark finally realized what had happened. He immediately told Carol, "Call 911. But before she could, Mark started vomiting blood violently and died on the spot. Carol grabbed a knife and lunged at Peter, but the same fate befell her. Just then, the loud chime of the big clock rang. Before dying, Carol managed to say just one thing. "Don't let her out, Peter." Peter dashed forward and grabbed the key tied around his mother's waist. He rushed to the big clock, and his sister asked, "Do you have the key? Then move the clock carefully." Peter followed her instructions, and the door, which had been locked for many years, slowly creaked open. A strange, eerie voice echoed from within, followed by a deep, monstrous laugh. A heavy, menacing voice said, "Thank you. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Brian, the troublemaker from Peter's class. But tonight, he wasn't alone. He had brought his elder brother and two of his brother's friends to take revenge. Hearing the doorbell, Peter's mysterious sister quickly hid their parents' bodies. The moment Brian and his group entered the house, they started smashing things recklessly. Terrified, Peter hid under his bed. One of them noticed blood dripping from the dining table. Ignoring it, they moved toward the piano, intending to break it. But suddenly, they saw long strands of hair hanging over it. Before they could react, Peter's sister brutally killed one of them. The same fate awaited the others. Seeing this horror unfold before his eyes, Brian was paralyzed with fear. Suddenly, a mass of hair dropped down behind him. The next moment, his terrified screams filled the room, and soon, Brian's brother also met his end. By then, Miss Devine was already on her way to Peter's house in her car. Peter, meanwhile, was witnessing a mysterious massacre unfold before him. He saw someone crawling toward him like a spider. Long strands of hair dangled from its head. Its body was much larger than a normal human's. In a broken voice it spoke, "When you were born, everyone was happy. But when I was born, everyone was terrified. So when I came home, our father built a cage for me. And in that cage, I spent years trapped at the bottom of a well. While you enjoyed the warmth of your bed during freezing nights, I survived among spider webs and rats. I observed them and learned how to climb walls and how to bite. And I kept wondering, when will the day come when I can finally do whatever I want?" Miss Devine had already arrived. As she stepped inside through the open door, the scene before her made it seem like something terrible had happened. Just then, she heard the sound of someone crying. Sensing the abnormal situation, Miss Devine was about to call the police when Peter's sister dug her sharp nails into Miss Devine's foot and ran away. Letting out a scream of pain, she saw two half-eaten corpses. Before she could process anything, Miss Devine noticed someone with long hair, almost like a beast, charging toward her. As she tried to gather herself, Peter screamed, "Madam, run from here!" The voice came and then abruptly stopped. Despite the danger, Devine wasn't going to abandon Peter. Following the voice, she reached Peter's room and realized that he was trapped behind the wall. Just then, a girl entered through a secret door behind the clock, and Devine broke through the wooden wall to free Peter. However, as Devine was about to escape with him, Peter's mysterious sister suddenly grabbed him and threw him into a well that Mark had built. By now, Peter had lost all hope of survival. He picked up a doll lying in front of him and noticed a name written on it, Sarah. Suddenly, a long strand of hair fell in front of him from above. A massive, half-human-like creature was descending toward him. It was his sister, Sarah. She had enormous, claw-like nails, a face that was not entirely human, an unnaturally wide jaw, and large, sharp teeth. In a terrifying voice, Peter's sister spoke, "Peter, not everyone is born as beautiful as you. Some are born as monsters like me." Meanwhile, Devine had arrived, but Sarah attacked her and slowly advanced to kill her. Peter then noticed that a large portion of Sarah's long hair had reached down to the well. This was the perfect moment. Peter grabbed the hair and started pulling himself up. The sudden force made Sarah jolt backward. As Peter climbed up, he pulled Sarah's hair and dragged her to the edge of the well. Seeing this, Devine struck Sarah with an iron rod, knocking her into the well before locking the door shut. Sarah desperately tried to climb out, but she couldn't. Suddenly, her voice softened. "Peter, listen," Sarah said. "I am your elder sister. It is your duty to save me. Look, the same blood runs in both of us. If you consider me a murderer, don't forget that you also killed your own parents. Do you really think you can keep me trapped here? No, that's not possible. Because every night when you go to sleep, a few fears will creep into your mind. Did you lock the door properly? In the dim light, you will always feel like you just saw a shadow move. Every sound, every whisper from the walls, every distant cry will remind you of me. Because we share the same bloodline, and family members never truly leave each other." And with that, the movie ends here. How did you like today's video? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you have an elder sister, comment her name below. You can also share this video with your sister.